now we're going to start looking at functions. So what exactly is a function? A function is a special relationship. Meaning each input, or better known as your x, has exactly one output, which is your y. So these are new vocabulary that we need to think about. Your input is known as your x, your output is known as the y. So for it to be a function, your x cannot be repeated. And there's different tests you can have. To test whether a relation is a function, there are two tests. When you're given an ordered pair, remember that's x, y, or when you're given a graph. So when you're given an ordered pair, if your x value repeats, then it's not a function, meaning if you have more than one of the same x. Or if you're given a graph, you'd use the vertical line test. So if a vertical line intersects a graph more than once, then it's not a function. So keep in mind, this means that your x is used more than once. Let's look at some examples. If we look at number 1, so we're given ordered pairs 1 through 4. So when we're given ordered pairs, we want to see if the x value repeats, then it is not a function. So using a highlighter or your pen or pencil, highlight in number 1 the x's, or you can underline them. Looking at the first one, my x's are 5, 3, 2, 0, -1. None of them repeat, so yes, this is a function. Looking at number 2, we have -2, 0, 2, 3, 2. Well, if you look, my 2's repeat, so that means that this is not a function. Looking at 3, we have -4, -3, -2, -1, -3. Well, once again, -3's repeat, so this is not a function. Looking at 4, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. None of my x's repeated, so yes, this is a function. So looking at 5, 6, 7, and 8, these are tables. They're just giving you ordered pairs. So once again, I'm going to highlight my x's. Remember, the x is your input, the y is your output. If you look, 3, -1, 0, 2, 3. The 3's are repeated. So this means this is not a function. Looking at number 6, here are my x's, my inputs. We have -4, -2, 1, 2, 5. None of them are repeated, so this is a function. 7. What do you think? Is this a function or not a function? Give you a couple seconds. None of my x's are repeated, so that means this is a function. So these, let's be sure and label. These are our ordered pairs. These are different ways we can see it. 5 through 8 are tables. Let's look at the last one, number 8. If we look at number 8, these are my x's. Are any of them repeated? If you look, the 4's are repeated, so that makes this not a function. So looking at the tables, we have to make sure that our x value is not repeated. As long as the x value isn't repeated, then it is a function. Our next type that we might see would be the mapping. So that would be these guys. So the first one is my x's, or my inputs, and the second is the y, or my outputs. And it's the same thing. If the x is repeated, then it is not a function. So looking, this x only has one arrow, this x has one arrow, 2 has one arrow, 4 has one arrow. So that means that this is a function. Looking at number 10. Here's my x, the input, here's my y. -4 only has one output. -1 goes to the 0 and to the 7. That means -1 is going to be used twice. These would be your points. It would end up being -1, 0, and -1, 7. So that means that this is not a function. So let's turn to the back. We're going to look at the last representation. This is graphs. So remember, graphs are just made up of points, but what we can use is called the vertical line test. The vertical, remember, is up and down. So looking at number 11, were any of my x's used more than once? There's the point. So for my vertical line test, when I draw vertical lines, this one was used twice. X equals 1. So that is not a function. Looking at number 12, where my points are. Each vertical line only goes through one point. So this is a function. If you look at number 13, there's 2 points at x equals 3. So this is not a function. Looking at number 14, when we have a continuous graph like that, if I was to draw a vertical line, see how it touches the graph twice. So that makes this not a function. If we look at number 15, if you were to draw vertical lines, this is a function. The last one, if you were to draw vertical lines, it only touches your graph one time. So on number 16, this is also a function.